everyone. Shalom, overcomers. For those who are here and those who are going to watch this live later, we are going to talk about fasting and the benefits of it. And I discovered fasting, I'd say about 8 years ago. Really, honestly, I never fasted before that 8 years ago. When was I? I was about 28. And what happened was I started having stomach problems, and I had to change how I ate. And then I started doing research on how I could heal myself without using any type of medications or any pharmaceutical, you know, alternatives and whatnot. And fasting was the one thing that really helped me. And let me bring up this presentation that I made. So you have a visual. Fasting benefits. What is fasting? Fasting is to abstain from all or some kinds of foods or drinks, especially as religious observance. Excuse me. Forgot to learn how to read. Basically, fasting is when, in medical terms, is when you don't spike your blood sugar with any calories. So anything that is 0 calories, 0 carbs, that will keep you in a fast. And for a biblical, from a biblical standpoint, is the involuntary, temporary abstinence from food and sometimes water to humble oneself, seek God's guidance, show repentance, or intensify prayer. As you, if you read the scriptures, there's countless examples of fasting. Yeshua, or as the world calls him, Jesus, fasted in the desert. Um, Daniel fasted, but he did a fast where he only ate vegetables. That's a different type of fast. And basically, when you do fasting for God, you do a little bit more than just abstain from eating. You want to basically just stay in your prayer closet and read scripture, and just basically it brings you closer to him, because you're not depending on anything for sustenance but his word and his direction. And when you're in a fasted state, it kind of feels like a euphoric sensation where your mind isn't fixated on your I, in a better way, your reptile urges or senses, where you want to eat or sleep or anything like that. You're basically in tune with your spirit. And the oh wow, I didn't even have this up, my bad. And there are different methods to fasting. Let me zoom this in if I can. Can I? Yeah, okay. Hope that is better. Is that? No, wait. Okay. Oops. Okay, yes. There are there are different ways to fast. You could start with a 16 to 8 fast. That's intermittent fasting. That's usually the guideline, where you go 16 hours without eating and then you eat within an 8-hour window. So for me, basically, I for most of the week, I try to stop eating after 5 o'clock, and then I don't eat until 9 o'clock the next day. And that takes a lot of discipline and a lot of, you got to build yourself up to it to do that. And you basically want to ease into a fast. So instead of doing 16 to 8, which is kind of hardcore, you could do 14 to 10. That method is obviously, that's probably what more people do or what some, something that's more casual, where you would, like, let's say you stop eating at 8 o'clock at night, and then you don't eat until the next day until 10, and most people can follow that schedule for those who are just fasting. And basically, we've been lied to, where our body, they tell us that we constantly need to eat, and we should be eating, we shouldn't really be eating all hours of, past certain hours of the night, because digestion takes a lot of energy, and your body is either healing itself or it's using fuel to give yourself energy. So basically, fasting allows you to heal your body, because your body is no longer using energy to digest food. And I'll get into it more, but let me just keep on going with the different examples of fast. The 5-2 fast is where you eat normally for 5 days, and then you have a caloric restriction. Basically, you could eat less, 500 or 600 calories less. It's all dependent on you. And alternate day fasting is when you fast every other day. And then there's the one meal a day, which I saw my cousin do a couple years ago, and I was kind of in awe and dumbfounded that he could just eat in one sitting. But for some people, they could do that. They could, go like 20 hours to maybe, 20 to 24 hours, where they just, don't eat, and then they eat they obviously they want to eat all their calories in one sitting. And for some people that works, for others it doesn't. All right, and there's considerations when you want to start fasting. What you want to do is you want to consult a doctor before starting a fast. It is crucial to consult a doctor, especially if you have underlying conditions or take medications. You want to make sure that you're hydrated. You want to ease into your fast gradually. And when you're in your eating window, you want to focus on eating nutritious whole foods. Just because you're not eating a lot, or you've abstained from eating, doesn't mean you could just binge on, junk food or things like that, because it will reverse or, completely alter the effects and the benefits. What you also want to consider is if you're a woman, because fasting is different for women because of hormonal changes and things like that. I'm not a scientist, but I have sources talking about how it's different for women to fast, and how women can fast within their different menstrual cycles and, perimenopause. And there's different guidelines that we'll go into on how, if you're a woman, you should fast. For men, it's not as strict, because their metabolism is different, and they don't have as much, I guess, hormonal um, responses going on in their body. All right, and let me get into the benefits. Metabolic health. The metabolic benefits of fasting: it promotes blood sugar management by reducing insulin. Several studies have shown that fasting may improve blood sugar management, which may be helpful for those at risk of developing diabetes. Decreasing insulin resistance can increase your body's sensitivity to insulin, allowing to transport glucose from your bloodstream to your cells more effectively. It can also help, by reducing blood pressure, lowering triglycerides triglyceride levels, basically fat, um, and improving cholesterol profile. So basically, when you're in a fast, your blood sugar is stable because when you eat, it raises your insulin, and insulin is basically the hormone that helps your metabolism effectively, you know, get energy into your cells so they can function. And if you are insulin resistant, that basically it's basically what they call a lock and key mechanism. If insulin can't get into your cells, they can't function properly, and that causes all types of problems. And the most powerful benefit is autophagy. That's basically when your body heals and repairs itself. What your body does when it's in a fasted state, a lot of experts debate on when this effect takes hold. Some say it's 16, some say it's 20, some say it's past 24, but 16, there's a consensus that 16 hours or more helps repair the body and helps with all other types of ailments and chronic illness. And basically, what autophagy does is when your body breaks down and recycles damaged components, it is enhanced during a fast, which may play a role in reducing the risk of disease like cancer and neurodegenerative conditions. And all the sources I have for this are in the description box of this video. So if you'd like to see the sources and read them on your own. And the next benefit is for your gut microbiome, basically helping with the balance of your good and bad bacteria. And it basically, what that means is fasting can help alter your gut microbiota and improve gut barrier function, which is that gut lining. Your gut lining is basically, when you're digesting food, you have a gut lining that helps absorb those nutrients. And when the integrity of it is impaired, what happens is what they call leaky gut, where the gut lining is inflamed, and then those proteins get in your blood, and that's called the blood barrier. Yes, the blood brain barrier, and that causes all types of immune responses in your body. And by allowing your gut to rest, you're lowering inflammation and increasing beneficial bacteria that helps you um, absorb nutrients better. It helps you digest your food better. And this and fasting also, like I said, it helps systemic inflammation caused by different bacteria that gets within your bloodstream. That's basically the start of most illness, is when your gut lining and gut integrity is altered. And again, this is all fair use, and I'm not giving medical advice. I am not a doctor. And let me get on to the next benefit. Weight loss, of course. If you're eating less, you're at a caloric deficit. And when you're at a caloric deficit, you're burning more calories than you take in. And the thing about fasting is when you're fasting, you're burning glycogen, basically all of the food that your body uses. It's stored in your muscles or in your liver as glycogen, and that's basically your body's reserve for energy. And when you're in a fast, instead of using instead of using that as storage, it uses instead of that using that as fuel, it uses fat. And again, just basically from the articles, it helps with increased fat oxidation, reduces insulin resistance, and helps your metabolic function. And also, what it does is it helps with human growth hormone, and that can help with fat loss. And it also helps with muscle mass. It helps you gain muscle mass. There's people who use HGH, to gain muscles, or to get put on muscles, different builders, but that's all synthetic, so it's not the same as your body producing it. And the last benefit is longevity. Obviously, when you are fasting, you are increasing your longevity because you are taking in less, you know, different toxins from foods, and you're helping your body repair, and obviously that allows you to have longevity. And now I have videos of experts. This is Dr. Jason Fung. He is very knowledgeable about fasting, and he's seen many patients and helped reverse their insulin resistance and their diabetes with fasting alone, and different conditions like chronic kidney disease. And I suggest that you subscribe to him because he will definitely help you with this journey and will keep you knowledgeable.
Hi, everybody. Today we're going to talk about the biggest mistake I see when people are trying to fast. And it's not just mistake that regular people make. People in studies do the same mistake, and we're going to talk about it coming right up. What's the biggest mistake that I see? Hands down, the number one mistake is eating too much when you start eating again. So let's think about what fasting is. When you don't eat for a period of time, say you're only eating one meal a day. So by dropping those few meals, what you want the body to do is switch fuel sources. Remember that when you're feeding, your insulin goes up and you tell the body to store food energy, which is calories. You store those calories as body fat. When you fast, you allow the insulin levels to fall, and that's a signal for the body to start using some of those stored calories because nothing's coming in from your mouth. So you're still having a so called caloric deficit when you measure what you eat compared to what you burn. But so what? That's the whole point of fasting. Suppose your body is normally burning 2,000 calories a day and you eat one meal a day. And in your one meal, you eat 1,000 calories. You are in a caloric deficit because your body is going to have 1,000 calories from your food, and it's going to take 1,000 calories from the stores of body fat to make up those 2,000 calories. And that's the reason why your body doesn't need to lower its metabolic rate because it's allowed to take the calories out of storage. If you're keeping your insulin levels high by constantly eating, even if you eat 1,000 calories, if your insulin levels are high, you cannot access the calories in your body fat. It's like having money in the bank, but the bank is closed. You can't get the money out. So if you are taking 1,000 calories in, but your insulin level's high, then your body can only burn 1,000 calories. And that's when people notice that their metabolic rate starts to fall. We went over it in last week's video about the most important concept in weight loss, understanding that the hormones are really the key. The most important hormone is insulin, and fasting is simply a way to allow that insulin levels to fall so that when you are having a caloric deficit, that you're able to make up that deficit from your body fat stores. Just like the bank that's closed, you're allowing the bank to open so that you can take out that stuff that you stored in. So some people sometimes ask then, hey, well, couldn't you achieve the same result by just cutting a few calories every day and eating 6 times a day? And the answer is no, because if you're constantly eating, then your insulin levels stay high and your body fat simply cannot give up those calories that it has stored away. In physiology, what we say is that insulin inhibits lipolysis, which is just a fancy way of saying that if your insulin levels are very high, you can't burn fat because when the insulin levels are high, that's the signal to store fat, not burn fat. So let's look at some of the studies that have been done over the past 5 years looking at intermittent fasting. And unfortunately, they've made some of these same mistakes. That is, when people are eating again on that fast day, they eat too much. So if you eat 2,000 calories in a single meal, and you're fasting the rest of the day, well, if you're burning 2,000 calories, you're still not going to have any type of weight loss because you're storing 2,000 calories in that one meal. The rest of the time you just release it for the rest of your body. So practically when you want to fast, what you want to do is tell people to eat, for example, one meal a day. Then on that meal that they're eating, try and eat as normally as possible. You have to reframe your mind and say, look, when you skipped breakfast, when you skipped lunch, you want to take that meal out of your body fat, and therefore your dinner meal is going to be as normal as possible. Yes, you may eat a little bit more, but you shouldn't be eating all of the calories that you would normally eat a day. You shouldn't be eating the equivalent of your 3 meals plus snacks all in one sitting, because that's not going to let you lose weight. So let's look at some of the studies. In 2017, there was a study published in JAMA Internal Medicine, which was a randomized controlled trial. And it looked at two groups of people and
All
randomly
right, I
assigned
put
them
the
to
link to
either
the
fasting.
rest of that video in the chat if you want to look at it. And now I'm going to get into fasting for women and how it's different and how you can, be able to successfully fast without, ruining your hormones. And again, I'm not a doctor. You should consult a doctor about fasting. And here we go.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jason Fung. Today I'm going to be talking about fasting specifically for women, how to time it with the menstrual cycle, and what sort of things you should watch out for in the menopausal and premenopausal area, as well as some fascinating research from the biometrics company Lumen, which talks about the types of energy you're using through the cycle. Just a note before we begin, this video is sponsored by Lumen. This allows us to give this 10% discount coupon code, so please enjoy. There are some specific changes that go on with the hormones in the female body, and usually the menstrual cycle is counted from day 1 being the first day of bleeding. During that time, from menstruation through to ovulation, you get a slow buildup of the hormone estrogen. And estrogen is to prepare the uterus for the implantation of the egg. Ovulation happens roughly around day 14, and that's when the egg is released from the ovary and it makes its way into the uterus. After ovulation, the estrogen starts to fall and the progesterone level starts to go up. So these two phases of the cycle are broken up by ovulation, and that can be measured sometimes by temperature. Sometimes people feel it. The first half of the cycle is called the follicular phase, and the second half is the luteal phase. The question is when the best time to fast and what the best foods to eat are during those periods of time. Estrogen is interesting because it tends to have certain effects on the body. It goes up during puberty and it focuses the female body on putting fat into the hips and the breasts in preparation for childbearing. but it also decreases the appetite. So when estrogen goes up, appetite actually goes down. So you see this through the menstrual cycle. As you get closer and closer to ovulation, you see that the amount that women are eating tends to go down. And then in the luteal phase, as estrogen goes down, the progesterone goes up and the amount people eat goes up more. This is another study which tells you about the same thing, which is that during ovulation, your appetite goes down, people eat less, and then it goes up during the luteal phase. So estrogen has an effect to reduce the appetite, and progesterone has the opposite. And of course, you see this with synthetic medroxyprogesterone, which is also called Megace. This is a drug that is often prescribed for people to stimulate the appetite in cancer patients, for example, who are losing a lot of weight. They'll give this medication, sometimes in kidney failure. So estrogen suppresses the appetite, progesterone increases the appetite. Now, the fascinating thing, which I had never seen before, but Lumen had shared it, this research with me, is what type of fuel the body is using during the menstrual cycle. The Lumen, as I've discussed in a couple of previous videos, is a small handheld device, and it measures the exhaled carbon dioxide. And why does this make a difference? It's because our body uses two types of fuel. It can either use glucose, which is carbohydrates, or it can use fat. And when you metabolize those two types of fuel, the amount of carbon dioxide released in your breath is different between the two. So by measuring the amount of carbon dioxide released per oxygen, you can get an idea of whether the body is burning fat or burning carbs. This article looked at the exhaled carbon dioxide during the menstrual cycle and also during menopause to get an idea of what happens to your body when you're going through these differences between estrogen and progesterone through the menstrual cycle. And what you can see is a very distinct two phases, just like we have the follicular and the luteal phase. What you can see is that all the way up to ovulation, where estrogen is going up, you can see that the amount of carbon dioxide is staying relatively high, which means that the body not only is eating fewer total calories because of the appetite suppressing effect, but it's tending to burn more carbs during that initial follicular phase. And then it switches. After ovulation, progesterone goes up, appetite goes up, and the body switches then to burning fat because you can see that the amount of exhaled carbon dioxide goes down. So what is the implication when you're trying to lose body fat? The follicular phase is probably the ideal phase to do it because you're getting this sort of double benefit. First, because hunger is going down, it's actually going to be easier to do the fasting. And second of all, because your body is tending to burn off the carbohydrates, you want to let it burn it off. So by doing fasting during the initial phase or extended fast, you want to time it sort of going into that ovulation period, because remember, that's when your hunger is going to be the lowest. That's going to be the ideal time. And this is backed up by practical experience. So Megan Ramos, who runs thefastingmethod.com, who wrote the book Intermittent Fasting for Women, also didn't have access to this research when she was doing it, but her practical experience with thousands of women told her that this first phase is probably the best phase in the menstrual cycle. And now it's backed up her clinical acumen with actual science as measured by Lumen and also by the hunger sensitivity with the estrogen and progesterone. During the second phase, the luteal phase, when you're having the high progesterone, you're going to have increased hunger, but also more fat burning. So this is probably the better time to be switching over to a low carbohydrate diet. Because your hunger is going to be higher, it's not going to be as easy to fast. So why do it when it's hard when you can do it when it's easy? Because your body's already in this fat burning state, you want to keep it in this fat burning state. And eating a ton of carbohydrates is going to switch you out of this fat burning state because your body's going to preferentially burn those carbohydrates. What about menopause? During menopause, the cycle stops. And what happens is that both estrogen and progesterone start to rapidly decline. And this decline in estrogen is what causes the weight to redistribute. So remember that when you undergo puberty, the estrogen causes the fat to go into the hips and the breast, but underneath the skin. So that's the less dangerous type of fat. That's not the visceral fat, but the lower estrogen is going to push that back in. And remember that estrogen is going to suppress your appetite, and therefore the lower estrogen is going to cause an increase in appetite and therefore an increase in weight. And large-scale studies show that perimenopause, the few years just around menopause, are actually one of the highest risk periods for women to gain weight. Average weight gain for women is 2.25 kilograms, which is close to 5 pounds. What Lumen did was they took women who are menopausal but taking hormone replacement therapy, which mimics not being in menopause, so mimics the menstrual cycle, and compared that to women who are not taking hormone replacement therapy, and they looked for the difference. And what you can see here from these studies is that post-menopause, women tend to have much higher levels of carbon dioxide, which means they've switched from burning fat into burning sugar. And that explains, again, some of the problem that people have with perimenopausal weight gain. Not only is appetite going up because of the estrogen, but the switch from burning fat to burning carbohydrates, burning glucose, means if you're not burning fat, you're not getting rid of it. Super, super interesting data from Lumen, which is explaining why there's a problem. And of course, Lumen is going to be able to help you personalize some of this data. You can see what your baseline is, and if it changes over time, you may need to change your diet in response to your changing hormones, and that's called personalized medicine.
All right, Sister Cynthia, y'all said that's where she's at. Well, since I'm a man and not a doctor, I would suggest Sister Cynthia to follow Dr. Fung. That's his name. I'm gonna try to put his channel in the chat. Not try, I'm going to, so you could follow him because he's very knowledgeable on fasting, and especially again, fasting is different for women. Even Sister Fatea, who's in the chat right now, was the one who I thought about when doing this, that when women fast it's totally different, and I took that in mind to make sure that there was information on how to help women's fasting become effective, because again, the Most High made us different. Let me find the channel. Give me 1 second. You're welcome. And here's the channel. And I mean, I don't know, this other video may be redundant, but let me see if he has.
This week, we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about women and fasting. And stick around till the end. I'm going to share Deborah's fasting regimen that allowed her to lose almost 40 pounds. There's a lot of debate out there about how fasting affects women. So we're going to talk a little bit about the science of how the sex hormones like estrogen and progesterone affect women and body fat. A lot of this applies to men as well, but we're going to focus on the women today. Before puberty, girls and boys on average have about the same percentage of body fat. The effects of the sex hormones on body fat distribution are really evident over one's entire life, but there are certain periods of time that it becomes more obvious. Puberty is one of those. Under the effect of mostly estrogen and progesterone, are going to increase the amount of body fat, such as breast development, their hips become wider, and this is mostly in preparation for childbirth. During the childbearing years, people are often advised not to fast for women. Why is this? It's because if you fall below a certain percentage of body fat, then the body doesn't ovulate. You don't produce eggs and you can't become pregnant. You can develop irregular menstrual cycles and develop what's called amenorrhea or anovulatory cycles. If you're underweight, that is a body mass index under 18.5 by definition, then you really shouldn't be fasting for long periods of time because you don't want to be losing weight. You may have to talk to your own doctor in special situations. The other period of time where it becomes obvious about the sex differences is during the menopausal transition. In this study, they looked at multiple nations and what happened to body weight as people got older. They measured it from the number of years before menopause. And you can see that the body weight and the amount of fat that women carry tend to go up in the years preceding menopause. On average, it goes up about a pound a year until menopause. It continues for 1 or 2 years afterwards and then really stabilizes. So there is clearly a distinction between that menopausal transition where women tend to gain weight. And this is what many women tell us in our clinic, that they really have trouble losing weight during that period of menopause. At the same time, you can see that the amount of lean mass, which is generally muscle mass, tends to go down leading up to menopause. And this combination of less lean weight and increased fat weight is what often causes people to gain weight overall. There are actually several problems during that menopausal transition that can affect weight. It's not only about the diet. There is the changes in sex hormones, which we can't do much about, and the days of routine hormone replacement therapy are no longer with us. So that may be something we have to live with. However, there are other disturbances that happen that can affect weight. One of those is sleep disturbance. This study looked at the amount of sleep that people got and their weight. And what you can see is that if you are sleep deprived, that is less than 5 hours of sleep, then the rate of rise of weight is much higher than if you got adequate amounts, which is 6 to 9 hours. Let's look at the scientific studies that have been done to see if women lose weight while fasting. And there's been a number of studies. For example, in Harvey in 2011, they randomized 107 people and they were 100% female. In this study, they found that fasting was indeed more effective than chronic calorie restriction, which was the control group. The same researcher in 2013 found exactly the same results, this time with 115, also 100% women. In 2016, the study by
I'm just going to
Carter
skip
had
to
63 people,
him
and
talking about
52.4 of
Deborah's
them were
fasting journey
female. Here,
to give an
let me
example.
share with you Deborah's story. Deborah is a 52-year-old optometrist, the mother of twins, and she says she was overweight most of her entire adult life. She tried counting calories so many times, it never worked. Finally, she read the obesity code, and then something clicked. She was premenopausal, but as she started losing weight, she found that she hadn't felt better ever. Her energy was high, she was sleeping better, her mood stabilized, she reduced the medication she needed for high blood pressure, and she almost lost 40 pounds. What she said is that she started off by not eating breakfast. It was so easy, she said. Then she started to move to a low carbohydrate diet and started the 16-8 diet. As she became more familiar with that, she went to 1 meal a day and then 36 to 42 hours. So she changed it up slightly. She cut down her refined carbohydrates and sugar quite a bit and tried to have more healthy fats. In January of 2020, her husband started to do fasting and low carb dieting as well. He cut out all the sugar, which wasn't easy for him, but he lost almost 45 pounds in just 4 months. Her top tip: fasting together is very important. It's so much easier when you have somebody to share things with and support each other, and that's made all the difference. That's a great job, Deborah. You've done amazingly well. That's it for this week. I hope you learned something, and if you did, share it with your friends. They might learn something too, and you might be able.
All right, so yeah, that's basically for women. If you want to get more, advice or tips on how to fast safely, Dr. Fung is a great resource. And Fast Like a Girl by Mindy Pitts, as Sister Fatea says. I never heard of her. I don't know if that's with I don't know. I mean, I'm not familiar with the channel, but maybe I don't know if that's a book or a YouTube channel. That's without exercise. I actually do not know if that is without exercise, but I would suggest exercising as well. But again, you probably would want to consult a doctor. And from my experience, I've can work out fasted because I've done it before, and I guess I'm a little bit still young, quote unquote, and I'm able to, my body's fine, working out fasted. Initially it was weird, but then I got used to it. So I would advise both, but let me move on. And these two videos is Dr. Fung again, and then Dr. Berg, who I also follow basically on nutrition. I'm going to put his channel in the chat as well. He knows a lot about nutrition and how your body works, and he talks about fasting as well. So these are two great resources that served me well. These are two people who are knowledgeable, actually care about people's well-being, and gives you practical knowledge, and you could apply it, and it's wisdom, and it could help you along your journey. And Sister Fatea said, women should not work out fasted. Okay, I learned something, because I was able to do it, but again, like I said, my caveat and disclaimer, it's different for women and men when fasting. That's why I put that information there. And that's Dr. Berg's channel. Yeah, that's his channel. And let me put the links to these two videos in here as well.
Blocks lipolysis. So what that means, and we've known this again for 50 years, insulin stops you from burning fat. Why? Because insulin is telling your body to gain fat. So you don't want to burn fat and gain fat at the same time. So we say insulin inhibits lipolysis. So if insulin is high, but you're only taking 1,200 calories, you have no access to your fat stores, right? Because it blocks lipolysis. Insulin is high, you can't burn fat. So all you have coming in is 1,200 calories. All you can burn is 1,200 calories. Your metabolic rate must slow down in order for you to survive, because you don't want to die. What happens now if you allow your insulin to drop? Say you go on a 7-day fast, and so you have 0 calories coming in for 7 days. And I choose this not because I recommend it. It's fairly extreme in some cases. But if you have insulin resistance, at least I know your insulin will fall. So as your insulin falls, then you're going to switch from burning food to burning fat. That's what's supposed to happen. So If your body now sees, okay, I'm burning body fat, there's like tons of this stuff.
Yeah.
Why do I need to slow down my metabolism? In fact, if you look at the physiology of fasting, it actually maintains the metabolic rate because as insulin falls, you get a counter-regulatory hormone surge. And again, this is sort of basic physiology. Insulin falls, the body increases sympathetic tone, so the sympathetic nervous system, adrenaline and noradrenaline, growth hormone, and cortisol. We know that. That's pretty basic because that's trying to get the glucose back out from the liver into the blood. And those hormones, the sympathetic nervous system, adrenaline, cortisol, growth hormone, are trying to push the glucose out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you think adrenaline does? That's not slowing your metabolic rate.
Right.
It's pumping it up. And why does growth hormone go up? Well, growth hormone is there because you have a period of gluconeogenesis at around 24 hours. So if you look at the physiology of fasting, the glycogen stores, which are chains of glucose in your liver, that's the first sort of stuff you go to. When you burn through your glycogen, and it lasts for 24 hours. At 24 to 36 hours, roughly, you're going to burn protein. And that's where everybody says, oh, you're burning muscle. No, you're burning protein. That's not necessarily muscle. There's a lot of excess connective tissue. There's a lot of excess fat that you should burn. If you look at those, documentaries of people who lose weight, they have all this excess skin.
Yeah.
Well, that needs to be burned. And you want to burn that. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. You want to get rid of that. Same thing with autophagy. You want to get rid of this protein.
Mm-hmm.
But if you keep getting rid of protein and never putting it back in, that's not good either. So what does the body do? The body's not that stupid. What it does is it pumps up growth hormone like you can't believe. It goes up like 3 to 5-fold on a 5-day fast.
Wow.
And what it means is that when you eat again, you're going to rebuild that protein. But not the protein that you didn't need, that excess skin that you didn't need, the stuff that you do need. And same thing for autophagy, same thing for cancer cells, same thing for Alzheimer's, plaque, and so on. You actually have the ability to break down this protein that you don't want. And that's why a lot of these people, there's a lot of research going on into autophagy, caloric restriction in terms of longevity. I mean, there's the whole calorie notion, which is not really physiologic, but it's the same thing. You really want to burn off this excess protein that's not making it good, because if you don't ever let your body break down this protein, you can't actually build new protein, because it's like if you have a bathroom that you want to renovate, the first thing you got to do is pull out that sort of avocado green tub that was sitting from the 1970s. If you don't pull out that tub, you can't put in a nice new clawfoot tub. You have to get rid of it first.
Yeah.
And that's the way the body works.
All right. And to bring it home, Dr. Berg has a great illustration, and he talks about it more comprehensively and what fasting can do.
Let's talk about what happens on the inside of your body when you're fasting. So over here we have a start of a fast, and we go 24 hours, 48, and 72. So there's a lot of really magical things that happen when you fast. Our bodies have developed over a long period of time and have adapted to starvation many, many times. So we have all these unique proteins that get expressed or turned on that have to do with your brain doing better, the different parts of your body surviving better. Our bodies have not adapted to the frequency of eating like we do now, like every 3 hours. So right around 12 hours, we get this spike in growth hormone. Growth hormone is the anti-aging hormone. It's the main fat-burning hormone. It's the hormone involved with healing joints, and it's involved with protein synthesis, or making different new proteins. Some people take growth hormone, get injected. I don't recommend it, but they take it to help heal certain parts of your body. But guess what? Fasting will trigger it automatically. So just by the fact that you're fasting, you can increase growth hormone. And of course, exercise will also increase growth hormone as well. So it starts about 12 hours and it increases as you go on and on. Now, at about 18 hours, you start developing something called autophagy. Autophagy is an interesting thing that happens with your body where you start recycling old, damaged proteins and microbes as well. One type of protein would be the advanced glycated end products, which basically, when you combine glucose with a protein, it becomes very sticky. So let's say you're on a high carbohydrate diet, and that sugar combines with your own protein in your body, and that starts to glycate or just kind of destroy some of the proteins in your body, and then they don't function anymore, and they get sticky and they clog things up. Well, guess what? Your body will start cleaning all that up and turning these damaged proteins into new amino acids where your body can use them. Amyloid plaquing, which occurs in the brain and other parts of the body, is a type of protein that can be cleaned up with autophagy. So it's any type of cellular proteins that are not working anymore in your body. Autophagy will start cleaning that up and start to renew the tissue. And it starts right about 18 hours, and it gets more and more and more as you start fasting. And in about 24 hours and a little bit longer, you start to really deplete this glycogen reserve, this storage supply of glucose in your liver. So the more that the liver is depleted with glycogen, the more you're going to be running on ketones as the alternative fuel. And if you have a fatty liver, for example, your body will start using that fat and turning that into ketones. So your body is finally able to start tapping into this stored energy, and you're running more and more on ketones, which is a superior fuel. And because you're running on ketones, ketones are an appetite suppressant. So your hunger goes away, cravings are gone. They're antioxidants, so you're building up your antioxidant reserve. They provide more oxygen, so your body is running on more oxygen, less CO2. It's more efficient. And because ketones are a much more efficient fuel than glucose, the thyroid does not have to work as hard. And you may find that your T3 is a little bit lower, but the thyroid stimulating hormone is normal. And all that means is your thyroid is adapting to this new type of fuel. Now, some other cool things that are happening right around 24 hours is that your inflammation is dropping significantly. If you wanted to even speed it up more, you can add some vitamin D to that, and that will really help you. So any type of conditions that involve inflammatory states like arthritis, bursitis, autoimmune type conditions start to improve about 24 hours. You start getting more gut healing because the gut now doesn't have to work so frequently with the gallbladder being stimulated and the pancreas stimulating its enzymes. The gut finally has a chance to just chill out. So if you have this condition called SIBO, which there are microbes in the small intestine, and they should normally be in the large intestine, that starts to become corrected. You start increasing stem cell in the gut, so your gut starts to heal. The heart loves ketones way better than glucose, so you start getting improvement in the cardiovascular function and as well as in brain function. There's something called BDNF. This is a factor that helps make new brain cells. So your brain starts to repair at 24 hours. As you keep going on, you would think you're going to be losing muscle protein, but that's not really what happens because your body becomes more efficient. And there are certain genes that are sparing proteins. So it's not using muscle protein. So the efficiency of fuel is much better. Plus with autophagy, you're using the old damaged proteins and giving you new proteins. So the combination is really good. So the amount of nutrition that you really need to run the body is a lot less because the body just dials down and it can run on a less amount of nutrients. So that's a positive thing. Now, the other thing that happens during autophagy is that you're also cleaning out microbes and fungus and mold and yeast. And to kill off those microbes, your body develops certain oxidants, and you also have antioxidants on the flip side. So your body actually makes things like hydrogen peroxide to kill off microbes, but it also, on the flip side, makes its own antioxidants to actually protect the body against the oxidation. So we have this entire balance. It's only when we have lower amounts of antioxidants and higher amount of oxidants that we get this thing called oxidative stress, which things start breaking down. But when you're doing fasting, you're getting a nice balance of more antioxidants and your body's starting to heal. Now, when you get to 48 hours, you really start to stimulate the stem cells. these are undifferentiated cells. In other words, they're cells that don't have a purpose. So they can turn into this tissue or that tissue depending on what the body needs. So you start to stimulate the stem cell and get more healing and more repair, more anti-aging. You also get decreased risks of certain types of cancer. You get shrinkage of certain tumors. You start making more mitochondria. Now, if you push it and go up to 72 hours, you get even more stimulation of stem cells, okay, and better immune function. But when you actually get into 72 hours or greater, I recommend you do that as a periodic thing, simply because a lot of people going into this have nutritional deficiencies in there. If you jump in too fast, you can get a little bit dizzy. You can have some side effects. So you want to gradually do this over a period of time. But those are some general things that happen when you're fasting. I recommend doing intermittent fasting on a regular basis, okay? And probably a good average pattern of doing this would be going 18 hours of fasting with a 6-hour window. So you would eat and then wait 6 hours later and then eat and then fast for 18 hours. This would be a really good pattern to follow. And then you can actually make it more strict over time depending on how you do. Then what you can do is periodic prolonged fasting to achieve additional health benefits, whether it's for your immune system because you have an autoimmune problem, or you just want to look younger with your skin, or you want more brain cells, you want better heart function, better gut function, or let's say you have cancer and you want to improve that. Because one thing that fasting will do is it will increase your resistance to stress. And even if someone's on chemotherapy, it will actually help the body's resistance against chemicals and poisons, which is quite remarkable. Make sure you take your minerals during fasting. So I know a lot of people recommend just doing either a water fast, that you're just drinking water, or a dry fast where you're not drinking anything. I recommend doing a water fast with nutrients just because if you are deficient, you can have problems. So you want your minerals, you want your B vitamins, and you want your salt. Very important. Right around 8 o'clock in the morning, you have the spike in cortisol. And if cortisol spikes, sometimes that can cause your body to make more glucose, and you can have higher blood sugars. And it happens with a lot of people with blood sugar issues. Nothing to worry about. That will improve over time. But if you just add exercise in the morning, that will burn off some of that extra sugar. And if you're fasting, it's not coming from your diet. It's just coming from your liver making glucose, making a little too much because maybe the cortisol is too high. Okay, so just wanted to point that out. And I have videos on that. I'll put a link down below. It's called the Dawn Phenomenon. Now, if your LDL, so-called bad cholesterol, which is not really bad, low density lipoprotein is increased. The reason for this, especially if you're not consuming any type of significant carbohydrates and you're doing fasting, this is increased from a different reason. Think about one of the purposes of LDL. It's to deliver cholesterol to different tissues, right? Well, think about all the things that are happening when your body is fasting. You are going through a major healing process. And cholesterol is the raw material for your cell membranes, for your brain, to make hormones, to make vitamin D, to make bile. 40% of all the cholesterol in your body is there to supply the membrane of your cells, which is essential to protect the cell and allow for things to go in and out of the cell. So maybe one of the reasons why your body might need the cholesterol to be transported through this carrier protein is healing the cellular membranes. Or it could be that it needs to have the raw material to make more hormones. I would not worry about that. If you are concerned, there are various tests that you could do to determine what's happening to this cholesterol. Is it doing damage or not? But I would not worry about it. But anyway, I wanted to create a video just to kind of show you what happens to the inside of your body when you're fasting.
All right, so that's basically all I have for today. I hope it helps. And yeah, as Sister Fatea states it definitely really does help with weight loss and just basically overall well-being to start fasting. And Faith and Fitness by Garth recommends fasting, and you can look into all those tools that I gave you, those channels. And Mindy Peltz's Sister Fatea says to help give yourself, a comprehensive way to start fasting and what the do's and don'ts are. And you will be amazed at how it could change your overall mood and well-being, because Dr. Berg was talking about earlier about SIBO. That's what I had when I was in my late 20s. I thought I could still, go out and drink with friends and eat at late hours of the night, go to the diner, eat all this, terrible food. And then it caught up to me. I'm glad it did, when it happened right before I turned 30, because that basically forced me to change my eating habits. And then I started fasting. And around that time, I started to get this, really bad gas. I was having gas and was really constipated. And I was going through this condition. He was talking about SIBO, but then I was extensively and neurotically looking up different ways on how to, you know, reverse, or, how I could change my diet. And fasting was one of the things that really helped me, and it eventually, helped me, get back to somewhat, um, normalcy. But now I don't even know the things that they're putting in our food, and, the food industry. It's so hard to, be, it's so hard to, keep your, well, I'm not gonna say hard. It's just you gotta put more effort into regulating what you eat and the different things that they're putting in your food, to the point where I just fast for a lot of the time. I don't even really eat that much. So I hope this helps. If there aren't any questions or concerns, I'm going to end this stream in, I guess, the next minute or so. So if you have any questions for me or any concerns, just let me know. And I hope this was a good live. And I will just continue to put out more videos to help encourage you all to start taking care of your temple as the Most High God gave you, and to seek Him in all things, especially what's going on in the world now, where food is probably going to get hot. Not probably, food is going to be more expensive. That, learn, disciplining your body and adapting and acclimating to fasting will help you. And Sister Cynthia says, I've been unemployed for over a year and dealing with health issues, kidney and heart health. I'm trying to get back to life. These really give me guidelines. I'm praying that it does, and you will overcome those issues. Just keep on praying and seeking the Most High, and giving just taking the wisdom and the tools that others can give you. And some of this, well, not some of it is for free. It's not like you have to, see a doctor. Most doctors will just, give you whatever, give you some type of conventional medicine that will cover up the side effects, but it won't really help you deal with the issue. That's why God told us to, to fast, and to also seek healing with different types of herbs and plants. All the food is supposed to be medicine. So, that's what we're trying to do. And honestly, I am not a doctor again, but I'm just trying to help give the knowledge that I've learned over my experiences with different health issues. And, again, I hope this helps. I have to get off and go back to my side hustle. I hope this encourages everyone who watches this and watches this now, who's watching this now, or who's viewing this later. And I'm out. Faith and Fitness by Garth. Keep on overcoming, and you could also all the ways to contact me are at the bottom of this banner, and it's also on my website. So now I'm just sounding long-winded. All right, shalom everyone, and God bless.